it's easy to hide behind a camera and a computer and be miles away from your audience. It's another thing to be able to express something from the heart that's real, and don't be afraid to do that. Don't allow all the electronics to get in the way of the human touch.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Jeff Mara podcast. We have a very special guest today, Jeffrey Bryan. He is born and raised in L.A., was a teen in the 80s, pursuing a music career, playing clubs like the Roxy, Wiskey-a-Go-Go, Madame Wongs, and everywhere else on the L.A. Sunset Strip. He has also been in the Karate Kid movie, the original one, correct? Yes.
Correct.
Yes. He is a composer, singer.
Is there another one? Oh, no. I'm kidding.
No. He is a composer, singer, keyboard player, and guitar player. And this is very interesting because I figure we're close in the same age, and you have to be old school to know what the Merv Griffin Show is.
Oh, yeah, I know. That gives it away, doesn't it?
He was on
I was pretty young, so
yeah,
on the Merv Griffin Show.
And I saw, which is interesting, he plays with the Keitel All-Stars, and you still have to be old school to know what the heck Keitel is.
That's where my love is. I love the 70s. And I wasn't even old enough to really experience the 70s as an adult or a teenager.
Right.
But I love that era of music, which we can talk about.
Yes. All right. So you have accomplished a lot of stuff in your life. There's many ways or many places we can start. So where did you start first, music or acting?
It's always been music for me.
Always.
It's never really been acting. The acting was sort of a bonus that kind of came unexpectedly. I guess a lot of things, come to people unexpectedly when they're doing their life and things happen, but it wasn't something that I had planned on as a career or even a job. In fact, we mentioned the Merv Griffin Show. It kind of developed from the appearance on the Merv Griffin Show. I looked young for my age, and certainly when I was 15 to 18 years old. By the time you turn 18, it's easier for you to get jobs in Hollywood because you don't have to worry about a social worker or a teacher on the set. So if you can still play 14, 15 when you're 18, that's gold to an agent. They love it. So I looked really young, and they weren't looking at my acting ability or whether I had any. They were just saying, this guy looks young, and all the, Fast Times at Ridgemont High and Porky's and Breakfast Club and all these kind of coming to age films were really popular during that period. I mean, there seemed like there was one coming out every month, and there were a lot of people jumping on that bandwagon. And so I guess they thought that I was could potentially be lucrative for them.
Right.
But as far as I was concerned, it wasn't music, and I kind of fought it the whole time. Which may have been a mistake, thinking, you never know retrospectively, who knows, but it wasn't part of the plan. So
did you get the agent? I mean, did he spot you on the Merv Griffin Show and said, hey, would you, I'm an agent. Would you like to, would you like some representation or? Yeah,
it's kind of like that. It's actually a little bit more interesting. There was a show called Too Young for Primetime Players, which was at the Laugh Stop on Ventura Boulevard in the Valley, for those of you from LA. And then it was also another show concurrently. They would switch every other week at the Roxy on Sunset.
Okay.
And it was a variety show that was being put on for kids, believe it or not, at these adult venues. But on Sundays, it was a children's show for birthday parties. I guess they figured out a way to make some extra money on a Sunday, on a slow day.
Yeah.
And that show was being produced by a guy named Mark Lemkin. Haven't said that name in years. He used to be the road manager for Seals and Crofts, who was in the music business.
Okay.
And he developed this show, and it was kind of a little place for young, budding actors and musicians that were very young. I mean, some of the kids were literally 4 years old. I was probably the oldest one at 15. And I was doing this show, and it got very popular. And so they did like Eyewitness News did a little thing on it, And I guess wind of the show got to the casting people at Merv Griffin, and they thought this might be a cool segment. It's kind of in vogue at the moment and popular. So they came down and took a look at the show, and they decided to have some of the kids on. I was selected. And the man that was involved with some of these kid actors was an agent, manager agent type guy. And I knew him already, but he wasn't representing me. And when I did the TV segment for Merv Griffin, he approached me at that point and said, I should take you on. I could get you work. And I said, great, music work? And he said, no, acting. And I'm like, but I don't know acting. Well, you do now. So, it was kind of a weird thing because at the time it felt like a big decision, because I wanted to play rock and roll. I was writing and producing for the show. I brought in a band, even at 15 years old.
Wow.
So the beauty of that job, they didn't pay us, but the beauty of what I called a job was that every weekend for almost 3 years of my life, I was performing on stage, on a good stage with a sound system, and being able to get in front of people. Maybe they were young people, but they were still people, and they were live audiences.
Right.
So it gave me a really good background for working on stage. So even at a very young age.
Yeah, and just being on, you can't really replicate playing live and practicing in the garage, because at least to me, there's always something that goes wrong at the gig. Something's not working, the monitors, something, and you got to kind of overcome that just to keep going.
That's the beauty of it, though.
Yeah.
That's where it's sort of where the creativity and the nervous energy can be turned into something magical.
Yes.
It's that potential of a train wreck.
Right.
Not the train wreck. We don't want that.
Right.
But the potential of one is good.
Yeah. So obviously you were playing at 15. Did you study classical piano as, started out at 5 or 6 or 7 or something like that? And
no, my background was a little different than some, typical, working piano players. I wasn't interested in playing an instrument. I was a singer. That's what I got started doing. And pretty young, about 11 or 12 years old, I discovered I had this big, this big voice, and I was this little kid.
Yeah.
So whenever I'd sing, people would be like, wow, took notice. So I liked the attention, and I liked how I felt when I sang. So I just wanted to sing. And I would grab all my parents' records and whatever I could find. I was writing down the lyrics, because back then, there was no computer. So you had to literally put the needle on the turntable, write down the line, then put the needle back on, write down the line. Yeah. So, I spent a lot of time writing lyrics out so I could sing to the songs. My dad was in the electronics industry, and he used to bring home these dual cassette players where you could record your voice on this one and record the song and mix it together.
Cool.
Kind of like a real rudimentary 2-track recording. And so I was trying to match what I heard, and I was listening to Supertramp and Elton John and the Knack, Hotel California, the Eagles, and just whatever they had. And I was just loving it, and I was just learning how to sing. But I quickly realized that I didn't want to sing other people's songs. I felt like I needed to do something else. Even at 13, I was struggling. You can imagine.
Sure.
So I decided maybe guitar is the thing I should do. And so I got a guitar, and I learned how to play guitar, and I had a few lessons and taught myself guitar. But during all this period of me singing, learning guitar, it all the way up to about 15, I was taking classical music classes, but not as an instrument, just theory. I was learning, counterpoint and how to write for 4 parts, and classical training on without an instrument. So it's kind of odd. So one more important point to mention is that there was a piano in the house, but it wasn't really there for me. It was supposed to be for my sister. And I was told, growing up, that's not for you. Let her, they wanted to encourage one of us to learn an instrument. And she never bothered with it, never wanted to learn it. And so by the time I had all these music classes behind me and I kind of understood music, I was starting to write songs, I kind of could play guitar. I saw that piano and I said, I'm going to give this a shot. And I sat down and taught myself how to play piano. But I already knew how to read and write music. You know, so I kind of knew what I was doing musically, but my fingers weren't really there because obviously, you know, I didn't learn how. Most people, they start on the piano, they learn scales, and then they learn how to read music. And it's sort of a combination of the two.
Right.
With me, I had it backwards. I could look at a piece of music and go, yeah, I can kind of figure out how that goes. But my hands weren't paying attention because I didn't know how to play the instrument well enough to put the two together. So it was a little different for me. But piano, once I discovered piano, it was like, wow. I mean, the floodgates opened up. It was like the guitar felt a little restrictive to me. I was a little more, I was really interested in how music worked, the composition and, you know, chords and why does this chord go to this chord? And, you know, and so because of that, I kind of intellectualized music a little more, but the piano became such an obvious choice because there seemed to be a lot bigger opportunity for me on it musically, you know, so I gravitated toward that.
Well, it's interesting. Yeah. I mean, at some point you put a lot of time in because I watch your videos now and you're a really good player.
Oh, thank you. I've been playing. It didn't take me that long to learn how to play what I wanted to play, but it's taken me my whole life it's, you know, I'm learning every day, you know, it's a constant challenge to keep fresh and to, you know, but I've been playing for, I'm going to show my age now, 30 something years, 35 years.
Wow.
So I've learned a thing or two.
if you've been playing since you're, you know, young, so
15,
you know, yeah.
I would say piano 15, guitar since I was 13, and my guitar playing is not bad, but it's certainly not. I don't sell myself as a guitar player.
Right.
I do play a little bit on, you know, recordings and things like that. But.
Did you get the Karate Kid gig during the Merv Griffin Show? Or was that after that?
No, the Merv Griffin Show. I was about 15 on the Merv Griffin Show, so I didn't actually get these acting jobs for another year, 2 years after that. But it was the Merv Griffin Show that was the catalyst for getting an agent, an agency that represented me. And for about a year and a half, I went out on interviews. I would go to school and then my mom or my dad would take me to my interviews. Wow. So, you know, we lived in the Valley. And so but most of my interviews were in Hollywood. So I got to see probably more than I would have without being a driver at that time, you know? Right. So I you know, pretty much grew up in Hollywood. And it wasn't until I was about 17 that I started booking shows.
Cool. What else did you do besides the Karate Kid?
Well, the first movie I actually starred in a film called Hot Moves, which was a cult kind of a classic now, but back then it was just this really low budget, you know, Porky's wannabe movie. Yeah. You know, 4 guys, they decide to have a pact that they want to get laid before their senior year's over. Right.
That sounds like Porky's kind of.
It's deep.
Yeah.
That was my first. Here's the thing. This guy that represented me, he got me into an agency that was not a theatrical agency. It was a commercial agency, which means that their biggest interest was commercials, Burger King, McDonald's, things like that. Right. I never booked one. Never. Wow. Hated it. Never. It wasn't acting and it really wasn't very artistic. And I was young and a little arrogant or didn't care or whatever. I wanted the movie jobs, right? The TV roles. And they had a very small department for that. And so I pushed and pushed and pushed. So I did manage to book stuff when they sent me out on theatrical stuff. But commercial stuff, I was complete bust for them.
Did they actually have you like take acting lessons, or had you already taken any lessons, or you just go there and wing it?
That's so funny. No. That's why I was really uncomfortable. They never suggested I do anything. Wow. They were just, if you want my opinion looking back, I think it was just they were trying to make a quick buck on the group of performers they had in their corral, and they knew that a lot of, I mean, but let's be honest, my lines in Hot Moves was, wow, really? No way, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I was playing my age,
right,
kid from high school. So it wasn't like I was going out for, Shakespeare. And I think that they were capitalizing on the sign of the times, what was popular at that time. Interestingly enough, though, as soon as Karate Kid was over, I did go and take some acting lessons, thinking maybe I should keep doing this.
Yeah.
Which I never worked again. So it's not.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah. Once I wanted to work, I didn't work. When I didn't give a shit, I got the jobs.
Right. It's interesting. Interesting the way the universe works.
Yeah. I'll never figure it out.
So at that point, Karate Kid was over. Were you gigging in bands too at the same time? Or did you were in just cover bands or bands playing on the Strip? Or how did you move from there to the Strip?
I did not play in any bands during those 2 or 3 years of acting because, well, first of all, I was fresh out of high school by the time I did Hot Moves and Karate Kid. It was all like in 1983, 84. And had no experience in anything. And acting was actually, I was making money. I was busy. My days were filled with interviews and meeting casting agents and things like that. And music was kind of pushed to the side. And by the time the Karate Kid ended, the contract was over. I looked around and realized, what the hell am I doing? I'm not getting any more acting jobs. And am I a musician anymore? And it really scared me. I was probably 19 or 20. And I realized I may have wasted some really important years. So I just started putting bands together. I answered ads. I went on every band audition I could. I interviewed people. I started projects. So yeah, that's how that happened.
Probably around that time, I'm guessing that was sometime in the 80s when it was just, hair metal at that point in time on the Strip, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I wasn't David Coverdale,
right? I was
tall with a big mane of hair. That wasn't me.
Right.
I kind of, even though musically it was. I mean, my heroes were Dennis DeYoung and Richard Marx and Lou Gramm, but I sounded like these guys.
Yeah.
But I didn't look the part. And in the 80s, it was all about how you looked.
Yeah.
It was very difficult, to say the least.
Yeah. And probably there weren't a lot of gigs, if you would have maybe stuck with guitar, maybe there would have been a little more, I don't know if there was a lot of action for keyboardists. They're kind of,
Well, I wasn't keyboard player.
Oh, at that time?
I played keyboards for my writing and for me. Oh. I sold myself as a singer. I was
wow.
I was the lead guy. I was the lead singer. That's what I wanted to do.
It's interesting that you mentioned the guy's name because I was listening to your music today and I was like, he sounds just like the singer from Styx. And I couldn't remember his name, and now you just said
Dennis, it. Yeah, Dennis.
Yeah, and have you ever, because I think Styx has been touring without him for years. Did you ever try to get a gig with him?
No, it's funny though. I did meet him long before. I met him during my acting days.
Oh wow!
Which it has a very funny, embarrassing story. Actually, they sent me on an interview, and back in those days, videos for songs paid. They're not like today where they're all just, well, some of them pay now, I suppose. But back then they were like, they went through legitimate acting agencies and they got actors to play the roles. And Dennis DeYoung had his first solo album. I think it was Desert Moon or something.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't remember much about that.
Yeah. It didn't do particularly well compared to Styx albums, but it was like his first foray into his solo career. And they didn't tell me who the video was for until, they called my name. I walk in and it's freaking Dennis DeYoung sitting there.
Wow.
And I'm like, there's no way I'm getting this job because I'm just going to fanboy all over this guy.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, this is, that's my hero.
Right.
I had to be 18 years old. And I was like, all I wanted to do was talk to him about keyboards and talk. He didn't want to talk to me about that.
Yeah.
I mean, he's in the middle of a casting session, we had to do a scene together. When we finally got past my googliness, we started to get down to business. And the scene was he was supposed to be my dad in the video.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you remember the video, but he's driving and then he's playing basketball with his son. And
gosh, it's hard to remember that one.
It was on MTV.
When they used to show videos, right?
Yeah. Right. But I had to hug him. You know, we had to have like a dad-son embrace. And I just was like, I'm fucking uncomfortable.
I thought you were going to say, I wouldn't let him go. He finally told me, you can let me go now.
I wanted to talk to him about, you know, what keyboards he was using and you know, write a song with him. I wasn't interested in the acting. I didn't care about that. Who cares?
Right.
I want, you know, my head was always about music, you know, and so meeting him. So I did get to meet him actually, but it's funny. I'm jumping ahead, but Dennis DeYoung, in fact, all of the guys in Styx are kind of intertwined with Survivor. They're from Chicago.
Okay.
And Tommy Shaw has sang on numerous records, background on Survivor records.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Search is Over, some of the big hits. He's singing background on it too.
Oh, amazing.
Dennis DeYoung is written with Jim Peterick for years. They've written songs together. In fact, they have a song out right now that they wrote together. Jim Peterick was the other half of Survivor. There's Frankie Sullivan and Jim Peterick. The two of them were basically Survivor. They wrote all the material. Jim Peterick still works with Dennis DeYoung. So we've played gigs where we're coming off stage and they're coming on. But no, I've never actually had the opportunity to work with them.
You know, I was watching the videos today and it was coming back to me, some of those old songs. You know, when I first think of Survivor, I just think of Eye of the Tiger, right?
Yeah, Rocky 3.
Yeah, so that's the first song that, you know, you hear Survivor, that comes to my brain.
Of course.
And I don't remember his name. And if you're listening, I'm sorry, I apologize, but I forgot his name. But I saw an interview with him when whoever wrote the song was telling the story about how Stallone called him up for the song.
Jim Peterick.
Okay, that's who it is, and I thought that was pretty cool. So,
some of that's true, some of that isn't, but that's another story.
Oh, okay. Maybe we'll save that for another time.
Because there's other people in that band that might not agree with all that. That's all I'm going to say.
All right. I'm not going to contest that.
But some of that is true. I mean, it is true about the Queen. Another one, Bites the Dust. That was their temp track. That song.
I didn't hear that either. I mean, I just kind of saw it quickly, and he was just kind of, the most I caught was, you know, the guy had called me on the phone, and it sounded like Sylvester Stallone, and he just kind of like, oh, that ain't him or whatever, and then something like that, and then he decided to call back, and he was like shocked that it was him, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool, you know. Yeah. So his name is Jim, right?
Jim Peterick. Yeah.
He is not in Survivor anymore.
No.
But do you ever see him or come across him?
No.
No, you never kind of cross paths with some of the ex-Survivor members anymore.
No, unfortunately, there's a lot of bad blood.
That was kind of what I was leading to.
Which is really not for me to discuss because it's
and
I'm not privy to it, and I really don't know about it. But I just know that they're probably not going to get together anytime soon.
Okay, and I wasn't even really going there. What I wanted to know was, first of all, who is still in the band that was originally in the band?
Frankie Sullivan.
And he does what? Is he the singer?
He's a guitar player.
Guitar player. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Here's the thing. Survivor had two singers.
Okay.
Dave Bickler was the first original guy in the band. He's the guy that originally sang Eye of the Tiger. Okay. And he was on the first 3 albums.
All right.
So there was 2 albums prior to Eye of the Tiger.
Okay.
That they released. They've been together since 1978.
Okay.
But after the Eye of the Tiger, they went on tour around the world, and apparently the pressure of singing every night got to Dave, and his voice was given out. And these songs are really, they were tough, man.
Sure.
They were really high and hard to sing. And so they needed another singer, and they got Jimmy Jamison.
Okay.
And Jimmy Jamison was, I mean, Dave Bickler was phenomenal, but this guy was unbelievable too. And so there's 2 camps. There's guys that are like in the Dave Bickler camp and guys that are in the Jimmy Jamison camp. He came in for the first album with Vital Signs, and all their big hits started from that point on.
Oh, okay.
Can't Hold Back, High on You, The Search is Over.
Right.
These were monster hits.
Right.
And So, I'm sorry to answer your question. So Frankie Sullivan, he's the only guy that's been in the band from the inception, and he's still there.
And all the other dudes,
well, two are dead.
Oh, okay. See, my knowledge of Survivor is obviously very little. So it's becoming more apparent.
Jimmy unfortunately passed away in 2014. He was still touring with them up to 2014.
Okay.
And then Stefan Ellis, I think. Stephen Ellis. He was the bass player, the original bass player, and he passed away just a year and a half ago.
Oh, okay.
But he hadn't been playing with them for years and years.
Oh, okay. So I guess the guitar player just, and I don't blame him, wanted to carry on and keep gigging, and has the stuff, and just got some hired guns and kept rolling. Yeah.
Well, Billy Othello is in the band, and he's been in the band since 1995.
Okay.
So 30 years. I consider him to be almost a member.
Right.
He's kind of like not a founding father, but definitely has been in the band quite some time. And he's on one of their albums. So it's the two of them that are the longest.
How long have you been with them?
3 years.
3 years?
Yeah.
And if you don't mind me asking, how'd you get the gig?
No, I don't mind. I just don't have a story for it.
Oh, it's okay. Maybe your name kind of circulates around the. That's even a general question. In the LA area, do you just do names like yours and other people that kind of circulate, and they say, "Hey, I'm looking for a keyboard, and why don't you check out Jeff?"
It's possible. I knew who Walter was, and Walter was their previous keyboard. And it's not because I'm friends with Walter. We're not. I don't really know him that way, but I know of him. He knows all my musician friends, and we've crossed paths before. So there's a group of musicians that are. Working constantly, and I somehow my name came up, and I got an email, and didn't believe it because it was just one sentence. Would you be interested in playing for Survivor?
Wow!
And I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
I was like, this can't be real. Is this real?
Wow!
But it took me a week to finally answer it because I just thought it was a joke. I just didn't know if it was legit.
Wow.
Because it just didn't seem like it would be, but it was real, of course. So that's the story. I honestly don't know where it came from, but sometimes things just happen.
Well, hey, good for you. You got the deal.
Yeah.
When did you start composing for television shows and movies?
Very young, probably concurrently when I was putting bands together. Probably 18, 19. It all kind of. A lot of things kind of just came about from that period where I was playing at the Roxy every weekend. The guy that produced the show, I told you he was in the music business, being the road manager for Seals and Crofts, and he had a small production company that he was making. Back in those days, they didn't have independent filmmakers so much as they had like home video. That was the thing, and they didn't have YouTube or places to put them. So they would have these small little budgets of these little home video for release stuff. And you would sell it to, a chain of video stores or something. It was even pre-cable, even cable wasn't doing that. And so he had this company that he partnered with that was making videos. One of the videos was, believe it or not, was for Patrick Swayze's mother.
Oh, wow.
Called Swayze Dancing.
Wow.
And they were trying to capitalize on the Dirty Dancing thing. And had nothing to do with Patrick Swayze. But I did meet him on the set of this because he asked me if I knew him, not Patrick, the producer. And he said to me, you're doing this show. Hey, why don't you write some music for this video? And that's how I I realized you could make money doing this. Oh, okay. Cool. Let's do that. So, that was my first foray into video or film, if you will. So I've always done it concurrently. I've always the other thing to answer your question is that particular company. I was just smart enough to pursue it with them. I did that one video and I went to them and said, "Hey, do you need a composer? I want to do more of these."
Yeah.
And they every month or so they sent me another movie to do, or a video or whatever.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So it was a great experience. It was cool to do.
Oh, that's awesome. As you obviously know, the state of the music business, as far as file sharing goes, is probably, you're going to know it way more than me, but making money off, producing music has got to be down the drain. And maybe even, I would assume there's probably more money in making music for television or film, but unless there's just too much out there, because at least they have money to pay and it's not going to get file shared. How would you go about that?
Yeah. The industry is very, very hard right now. I mean, it's still struggling to figure out what it is.
Mm-hmm.
You have work for hire and contract work, and that pays. And some of those jobs are really good, but they're not easy to get. And they usually give them to very famous people or people that have some type of track record, and those jobs are not like up for grabs. But the rest of the world, with all the enormous amount of cable stations and TV shows that are made, they're using library music in a lot of cases. And the way libraries basically work is, you've got any number of potential composers supplying music to a library, and then the library is then given to the editors that may have a subscription to this library, and they'll pick and choose what they want out of the thing, and then the licensing is split between the library and the composer.
Yeah.
And we're talking pennies.
Wow.
Pennies. The only money in those situations, the real money, is in the title tracks or the end credits. If they want a specific song or something, then you can potentially. And then the other part of the industry where it's very lucrative, but not for me, because I haven't really cracked it, is the gaming side of things.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. There's still, that's kind of like films now.
Wow, that's interesting. And now that we're on Twitch, hey, we're at the right place for that. It's
a good point.
And I game a little bit. Obviously, my kids game a lot. It's hard to really even think about what kind of, the different types of music that would be out there. There's kind of metal stuff, and then there's
games like Prince of Persia. I mean, I'm old school gamer. Okay, so I go back to Zelda and Prince of Persia and Metroid, and those are my games. So 2000s,
right?
Those games, if you listen to those soundtracks, they're incredible.
Wow.
They're beautiful music. Go back and listen to, you can download the soundtracks to like Metroid. I don't know if you know that series of games.
No, not really.
Very popular. I mean, we're talking monster size games. And those games have soundtracks that rival, if not, are just as good as any monster Hollywood film. Prince of Persia, have you heard that?
I've heard of the game. I may have played it. It's just been too long.
Wow. I mean, just go listen to that soundtrack. I'm just like, my mouth drools. It's just, I just turn on the game to listen to the soundtrack. Unbelievable stuff.
What'd probably be pretty cool is maybe you should get into Twitch and just start, just like start.
You gave me something to think about.
Start broadcasting, because people, there's a ton. There's not a ton, but there's quite a few people down there that just either, that are just playing all the time. They get on there. There's a lot of like original people that are just either with their guitar and singing, or there's guys that are like, piano bar kind of music, playing Piano Man or whatever. There's all kinds of stuff. But I mean, dude, you could, especially since you're probably not gigging right now because of COVID, you could just
probably not. Definitely not.
Definitely not, depending on where it is. But some states are all, let's open up. I'm in Texas, and man, it's opening up everywhere.
I know.
Even the bar scene.
You're seeing a spike too.
Yeah.
It's spiking like nuts.
My good friend of mine was going to gig just last Saturday night, but then the spike kind of freaked him out, and they canceled it. Just kind of a bar band, but it's they're trying to get everything back open. And
no, you gave me something to think about, and I'm definitely going to look into that more. I know about Twitch. I've downloaded. I started an account, and I must have got sidetracked, and it wasn't that long ago. It was only maybe a month ago. So I need to go back and check that. I've heard this from other sources too. So now for sure, I need to take a look at it.
Yeah, because I think it'd be great if you're always, if you're there, maybe every day you pop in for a couple hours, right? You just, and you're live, and maybe someone in the gaming community will see what you do, listen to, hear your music and say, man, let's get this guy. He's always on Twitch, especially if you start to build a following, then it might be even cooler for the gaming community to say, hey, this is a guy from Twitch. He's doing our music.
That's good advice. Thank you. Yeah. I didn't even think of it.
Yeah.
I didn't put the two together. You're right. There's a huge gaming community there.
Yeah. So, I mean, even that might be even fun here's an idea is go learn a bunch of gaming songs.
Oh, yeah.
And sit there and okay, guys, who wants to hear the Minecraft song?
Right,
you know what I mean?
Right.
And who wants to hear Super Mario?
Yeah.
Maybe you might get quite a bit of following.
I know guys used to play the whole Zelda soundtrack.
There you go, man. Yeah, seriously, dude. That might it's kind of like that. I think on YouTube.
That's a great idea. That's a great because I don't know if you've noticed, but I've been putting out videos. I don't know if you've took a look at my Facebook page or my website.
I checked out your YouTube channel.
Oh yeah, that too. Lately I've just been. I get hired to play piano for people.
Right.
That's what I do by trade, and I sing too, obviously.
Yes.
But as the years have gone by, there's certain clients I have or people that I've worked for that don't really think of me as a singer. It's just an added bonus that I can sing. And so lately I've been putting these videos together where I get a chance to kind of sing and play. And I don't get to do that in all the bands I play in as often, certainly not Survivor. I mean, why would they want to hear me when they've got Cameron Barton?
Right. Right. I was listening to your music and I wrote it down because I can't remember all the names of your songs, but I was going to say, and I recommend people to go check it out. My favorite original song of yours is Our Time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I like that song. It was a cool song. And I really like I guess it's and one of the scores I really liked a lot too is Periphery, the score for Periphery.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of an Asian thing going on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool.
It's got a little bit of a kind of a world vibe to it.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I really love the harmonies in the R world. I was like, when I hear harmonies, I get excited.
That's all me. I recorded all of them.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. So yeah, I mean that is the Twitch thing. I hope that'll work out for you, man. Yeah, I think it's a good thing to at least check it out.
Yeah. You know what? I mean, doing a podcast and an interview like this, you're always thinking of talking about your history or whatever, and it's nice to get some information that I didn't expect. Well, so I appreciate that.
Hey, I hope I can help, man. We just we help each other out.
Yeah.
Let me ask you these questions.
Sure.
I talked to my wife about this, and the way the music business is now, and I think it just is what it is. I mean, I don't want to complain or anything, but it is what it is I feel like the music business, there's no more bands anymore. Bands are it's like becoming a dinosaur. It's like all you're going to hear is you get pop artists or maybe a rapper or a rapper and a pop artist. For me, at least growing up, you saw a band and, oh man, I want to be like the drummer or I want to be like the guitar player, but that's all gone. It's just like you're either going to be a singer or you're not.
Well, I didn't quite hear a question, but I can make a comment on that.
Yeah, okay. I was going to say, what do you think about that?
Oh, well, you have to understand that music and the approach to music and what music is now used for has changed dramatically through the years. Back in, when we were kids, young kids, buying an album was like going to a movie. It took center stage. It was a featured thing. You would buy a record. Hopefully it would be vinyl. You'd open it up. You'd take the lyrics out. You'd sit there. You'd walk over to the record player. You'd have to, there's a whole ritual that goes along with it. And it wasn't unusual, even at 13 or 14 years old, to sit down on the couch and just listen to the record. Right. It wasn't. There was nothing. There wasn't one of these to distract me. And what else was I going to do?
Right.
And so music had a different life. It was a featured event. And with the proliferation of the internet and the way we work on the internet now, and we're all connected and the social aspect of it, music has now been relegated to pretty much background. Even for bands, it's sort of, it's approached differently. It's not that it's bad. It's just not as considered to be the main event as often, unless you go to a concert. And,
right.
Forget the the lockdown situation, there's still concerts are the only place where really musicians are actually making money. They're not making money on records. Records are loss leaders, basically. They're advertisements now for other things. They're an advertisement for merchandise that they're selling or their ticket sales. And I don't know, that's sad, but it is a truth. And it's something we are now, this is where we're at.
Right.
Even the approach to how music was made, you couldn't go into the recording studio in 1982 if you weren't really good at playing an instrument precisely, because you'd be wasting too much time and money trying to figure out how to get it to work. But not anymore. You don't have to be a good, quote, musician on an instrument to make a beautiful piece of art with a computer. So a lot of what's happened on the internet is what I call the great equalizer. There was a time when actors and musicians were held at higher esteem, and it was harder to get into that club because you needed skills. And sometimes those skills, you either just weren't musically inclined, or you didn't do enough homework, or you weren't disciplined enough, or you had other interests. But now that the internet has kind of leveled things off, where if I have this inkling that I want to be a singer, I don't have any experience. Well, I can just copy my favorite singers and put a YouTube channel together. If I'm better at socializing than I am at singing, I may get a lot of followers.
Right.
So now the art form has shifted, in my opinion, from being craft based to being marketing based.
Yeah, it's very true.
How many people are going to get the interest of a record company on a major label without marketing themselves like as good as they could do it?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not going to happen if you don't have tens of thousands of subscribers to a YouTube channel or an Instagram channel or something. You're not going to get any interest.
Yeah, that's very true.
That's a different skill set. That's not the skill set of a keyboard player or of a guy that writes great songs. It can be. And in the 80s and the 70s and maybe even the 90s, you had people to do that for you. You had your PR guys and you had your record company staff and people that were, programmed into that. Your job was to go home and write a hit song.
Yeah.
So the craft has changed.
Right. And I guess kind of where I was going with that is I feel like kids have no interest anymore in learning instruments because of the change. You know what I mean? Like people wanted to become a drummer after they saw Ringo Starr on Ed Sullivan Show. They see Eddie Van Halen. They want to become a guitarist. It's
a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
When you see people that are getting an audience, and they're not Neil Peart, and they're hitting buttons instead of keys. And you grow up with that. Those become your heroes,
right?
And it's just a different world.
Yeah, it's very true. And they say now that even like YouTube, I guess you could use the word stars or whatever. YouTube stars, as far as advertising and merch goes, they will do a hell of a lot better than like the standard television or movie star repping a product. Their audience is automatically bigger just by virtue of the medium that they're on. It's just this twisted world. It's very different. But for people that grew up in the last 20 years, this is the world. Right. What we're talking about is we don't know what you're talking about. That's true. So do you yourself do any of your recording like on Pro Tools and stuff like that? Are you using your computer?
I mean, in fact, when those videos I do are live, but they're recorded through my digital audio workstation. And I'll clean it up a little bit, but I don't edit them. They're live.
Oh, that's cool.
But I do all my recording at home on my multi-track.
What do you like playing better? Do you like software synths, or do you like boards? Physical boards?
I like hardware.
You like hardware.
I use soft synths because I have to in some cases. There's instruments that I don't have and I can't necessarily get a hold of. But I've done both. And I like the real deal, man. Piano, organ. I have my B3. I've got my Whirly and my Rhodes, and nothing sounds like those. I don't
Right.
care how expensive the plug-in is or who made it. Doesn't sound like that, because I'll tell you why. It'll sound different on Friday than it does on Saturday. It just does. It's an instrument.
Right.
It breathes. It changes by the volume of air that's in the room. It's just, it's just a different animal. So to answer your question quickly, I always prefer real instruments. I can feel the latency. Even if it's a very fast, extremely short latency, I can feel it.
Oh, interesting. We were talking about playing live. What is your opinion on people that are now, when they play live and they have to lip sync? Does that bother you? Does it matter to you? You don't care? You have an opinion about that?
I certainly do.
Uh-oh.
but it like everything else, it's always nuanced. I don't like it, but I understand why.
Yeah.
So, from a business standpoint, sometimes it's necessary.
Right.
But I don't like to see it. I don't want to know how the sausage is made all the time.
Right.
I would prefer that it wasn't used as a crutch, which I've seen. I don't like these bands that get up there with 3 people and you hear a whole orchestra going on.
Yeah.
To me, that's not cool. To me, I can just put the record on.
Right.
Unless there's some other reason, like they have maybe some theatrical aspect to their performance that requires them to move around and that's the focus, then that's a different story. That's an understandable, for me.
I figure a lot of it is a lot of the acts now are the pop acts. They're dancing so much, constantly in motion, that how could you really sing that well with, you're going to be out of breath.
Well, it started with, Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera and all these more, I would call them more performances than rock music or pop music,
Yeah. So that's all right. All right. Let me see if we have any questions here. I got one of them already. So who are your music heroes, or who are you inspired by?
Well, first, before I answer that directly, I'm a song guy. So I can be inspired by a song.
Right.
I've always been interested in songwriting. Songwriting to me is a craft that I hope continues, even though it's sometimes it's hidden. So to answer that question, there's many artists that I am extremely inspired by. And some of them are some of the classic artists that you'd expect from someone that came up in the 80s. Anything from Elton John, Billy Joel, Foreigner, Styx, Survivor. There's something that's common throughout these. Queen, of course. I could go on and on. Supertramp, and some of today's. John Mayer. I'm a big fan of his. There's the point I'm making is that the common thread that goes through these is that they're great songwriters. These people have something to say,
right?
And that intrigues me. That's what piques my interest. I've never really been, even in my early days. I've never been one of these guys that was just all about a band. I knew kids that all they would listen to is AC/DC. That's it. Right. They're AC/DC fans. Or Rush. And I was like, well, I like that song from Rush and I like that song from AC/DC. Does that make me not an AC/DC fan? I don't think so. I was just all about how music worked. So I could turn on, stream something online that I've never heard of before and just be enthralled by it. And, then look up that person and see what else they do. So
talking about songwriting, is it more for you the lyrics or the combination of the lyrics and the chords and the melody? Is it the whole package that really attracts you to it, or are you more a lyricist?
No, the way I see it is this. A song, like a movie or any other medium that for entertainment purposes is a communication. It's a conversation. And so with respect to a song, you have lyrics and you have music. Now you can have a great song or a great piece of music that is just as incredibly expressive and communicates something without words.
Right.
And vice versa. You could have it the other way too. Putting the two together, it's even better. So I don't differentiate the two. You can have an enormously really inspiring piece of piano music, for example, that doesn't need lyrics. It's speaking. And I can tell you where that comes from. I was a singer all my life growing up. That's what I did. When I finally found my instrument outside of singing, it was piano. I basically sing through the piano. I mean, I'm putting whatever it is that I'm doing physically and mentally and creatively, vocally, I'm just channeling it through my hands. And so there's really, I don't see a difference between the two. I can speak to the audience or whomever I'm having the conversation with through my piano, or I can speak to them by singing. So as far as songwriting goes, if you want to write a song, it needs lyrics. If you want to write a beautiful piece of music, it doesn't need lyrics. So it just depends on what you're after, how you want to communicate what it is you're trying to say.
When you are writing songs, what do you have something that you usually do first? Do you usually come up with the music first and then you go, okay, and now let me put some lyrics, or do the lyrics come first for you and let me add the music?
I've done it both ways, but typically I'm constantly sitting at a piano. So it's usually I'll be playing, an hour will go by and I'll go, whoa, what was that? I like that. And I'll record it. And then I'll try to put some lyrics to it, see what it feels like. And other times it'll just be a phrase or something that sounds like could be a good song. And I'll explore it. And does it have a meaning for me? Does it make sense to spend the time on it? So it can come, generally, to answer your question though, it's usually music first for me. I love it when people give me lyrics. I love putting music to lyrics.
If you see country music, they're more obviously telling a story, you know what I mean? It's easily, you can follow the story. It's pretty literal. It's right all there. And then you get some lyrics that, are like Duran Duran, like some of their stuff is kind of ambiguous. You get where he's going.
I wouldn't call it ambiguous. More avant-garde. If you don't mind, let me put it in these terms. I personally, a good song tells a story. Now, you can tell that story in a multitude of ways. You can typically in country, it's always been sort of in a very down-to-earth, grassroots kind of a dude with boots just telling his story, and that's just a style. But that doesn't mean that somebody who's telling that same story in a more avant-garde or maybe a little bit more subliminal way isn't telling just as a powerful story. It's just a different style in which to do so. Country's become synonymous with that style of telling stories, but I would not say that is the only medium in which you see that style. I mean, good stories. I mean, Brian Ferry is another good example of Peter Gabriel. These are amazing lyrics, and they aren't associated with the country genre at all, but they serve the same purpose.
I didn't want to be putting one down. To me,
I didn't take it that way. I just don't see it that way. I see a good song. You could take any song that's worth its salt can be played on an acoustic guitar or a piano or sung a cappella. And that melody and that combination of words and melody tells that story so well that it doesn't need the production to work. So you don't know if it's country or not until you decide it's going to be.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Generally, if you're just to write a great song, that's all you need is like a voice and a piano or a voice and an acoustic guitar. And then you could take that great melody and lyrics and play it in any style you want to.
Exactly. It's just a vehicle.
Right.
And you decide how you paint your vehicle.
Right. Since you're a keyboardist, did you go into any 80s new wave music? And I can't remember the guy's name, but it said he was with When in Rome. Is this the same When in Rome that did the song?
Farrington.
Is this the same guy is that the same band that did The Promise?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great song, yeah.
Yeah, I did some work for him. Worked up a set of songs for him. We reworked some of his older songs. Kind of musical directed some stuff for him. And yeah, so that's a good example. That's a great song. That I mean, I would sit there and take some of the songs off his album and just play them on piano in a more expressive style than just the rigid synthy kind of thing they did in the 80s. And it took on a whole new level of interest. It was just really cool. And that's because they're well written, they're well crafted. I mean, it wasn't as difficult to come across people in those days understanding the craft, because it's no different than somebody coming up today and understanding the marketing aspect of their YouTube videos. It's, to me, it's a little foreign. I have to think about it. Back in those days, the only people that you could study were people that crafted songs. So naturally you were going to kind of osmosisly, get some of that. And anyway, those songs, yeah, I worked with him, and he had some great songs. There's some real gems on that album that a lot of people don't know.
I feel like in the 80s when the new wave came around that the keyboard kind of, took a new style and kind of shined there, like Depeche Mode and a lot of these, When in Rome and, Duran Duran. And they, I loved all their just arpeggiate. I just loved arpeggios after Duran Duran. I just.
Nick Rhodes loved his Jupiter 8.
Yeah, I was, and you may be really good on boards. There's a sound that I really love that he uses a lot of strings in the early albums, and it sounds like strings on a phaser. And there's a certain name, I don't know, Krumar or something. There's a board I think that he used.
Wow,
what is that? Is that what it's called? Krumar?
Well, Krumar was known for making organs, digital organs. I actually have a Krumar. I have a what they call a DMC 122, which is a modern version of a MIDI-ized Krumar organ. But anyway, no, Krumar wasn't really known for synth stuff. They did some string stuff. It depends what era you're talking about. If you're talking about late 70s, early 80s, it could have been like a Selena string machine. Yeah, and what they would do is it was this big box with a keyboard on it, and it was basically just a fluty kind of polyphonic flute sound that kind of sounded stringy. And so to give it more life, they'd put it through a chorus and a phaser, as you said. And they did that quite often. But the thing about the 80s, and you mentioned highlighting keyboards, is that the 70s were all about, unfortunately, it was about heavy instruments. I mean, a keyboard player was very unfortunate. And if you were the keyboard player in a band in the 70s, you had to carry a Rhodes, which weighs 300 pounds, a B3, if you were lucky enough to have guys help you lift it, that's 400 pounds. You get my point.
Right.
And so by the time the 80s came around, they were desperate for these synths to try to just get away from having. And so what they were trying to accomplish, and they didn't know they were creating something new, they were trying to make the synthesizers sound like the real instruments, but they never did. And they ended up sounding like synths.
Yeah.
We didn't know that they were supposed to sound like synths. This is my portable version of an orchestra. It doesn't sound like an orchestra. Well, I don't know what it is. It's a synth pad, but it didn't become that until people started realizing, hey, these are instruments on their own right. And so, Roland and Yamaha, PPG, and I could name a ton of other early. They got wind of this and realized they were making new instruments out of digital oscillators. And so that became the highlight of the 80s. And then of course the sequencer and all of the as you said, the arpeggiations and things just became stylistic of the time.
Yeah, and then they came in with the samplers and started sampling all those sounds and creating.
I had an emulator.
That's cool. Yeah, I saw some interview of somebody talking about Depeche Mode, and they had this until their Violator album. They were under some assumption that every song had to have a new sampled sound, not like any other sound before. So every album, every song, they had to go sample up something to come up with a new sound. And then I think on Violator, whoever the producer was said, that's ludicrous or whatever. You don't need to do that anymore.
Yeah. Well, samplers were freeing. That freeing. In other words, the synthesizers up until that point were only able to create a few different kind of tones.
Right.
And samplers gave you the opportunity to kind of like modify your own sound. You could record a train going by and make it polyphonic, you know, and maybe pitch it and do things with it. And that became sort of a stylistic badge of honor for some of these guys, you know. Howard Jones.
Yeah, there's another
good example.
Yeah.
This guy, he had was the album Cross That Line back in the 80s, and every instrument on it was sampled from a body part.
Wow.
And all the guitars lines in it were a keyboard going through a Marshall.
Wow, that's interesting.
Amazing album. Go back and listen to Cross That Line. Oh my God. It'd be brilliant today if it came out. Right. You know, people would just go, yeah, that's really cool.
That is cool.
But that's all thanks to sampling, you know?
Yeah. I guess it was like a real, you know, the 80s is kind of a real innovative time back then, you know, all this new gear coming up.
Yeah, you still had the organic goodness and guys that understood what an instrument, and then you had the digital aspect mixed in with it, smushed together. And so, yeah, it was this explosive time for, we call it new wave or pop or whatever, but really it was just an opportunity to do something that no one else had done before with electronics.
Yeah. As far as you go, are you more of a guy that likes organs and, you know, stuff like that? Or do you like synths? And then if you're a synth guy, or you are like an analog synth guy, like the Moogs and all the little...
It's like having a tool chest. You know, it depends what you want to accomplish. I always lean toward the electromechanical instruments, which are Rhodes, Wurlitzer, B3, clavinet. I love those instruments. They can't be really accurately recreated. On the other hand, the early synths, we didn't have digital, you know, we didn't have integrated circuitry in the early 80s. You know, now we've got circuitry that, you know, you can put the entire moon mission on a single little chip now. So back then, the only way to make sounds was through an oscillator that oscillated at a particular frequency that was then fed through an envelope of a generator that would modify the sound, and then your end result, you tweak it. And there's guys that are, to this day, are just, you know, tweakers. That's what they do. That's their thing. Yeah. I mean, probably not the right choice of words, but whatever. They just, that's they're very, very nerdy about that. Right. And you know, you're not going to get that sound on a digital instrument because, again, analog is still electronics, but there's actual electrons moving through something that's moving something. That's vibrating. And so by doing that, you're getting a little bit of the real world brought into the digital realm. In today's synthesizers, like this motif here and a few other things, you know, that, or everything else that's made today, it's completely within the electronic realm. There's no analog being brought in. So you're in a completely digital universe. Everything's recreated and represented in the form of numbers. So it's a digital representation of what a piano is supposed to sound like. And, you know, we're getting better at it.
I know that you said you're a songwriter. Do you like the keyboard playing of some of the new age from the 70s, I guess you would say, like Jean-Michel Jarre, and I wouldn't say he's that, but I really like Giorgio Moroder's stuff from the 70s. I love his stuff. And there's a guy I really liked a lot named Ray Lynch. Most people don't, never heard of this guy, but you know, and even if you go back to, I love the old, it's now Wendy Carlos, that old hooked on Bach thing. It was Walter Carlos, but he's Wendy now.
PDQ Bach.
Oh, it's PDQ Bach. I thought I don't know about that one. I just know the old hooked on Bach.
Hooked on Bach. Yeah. Right. But PDQ was sort of, I learned this in school. It was basically a guy that would recreate Bach pieces, but somewhat incorrectly. And the only people that would know that they were incorrect are like real classical aficionados. And I guess my teachers thought that was hysterical, but it sounds like classical music to me.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, oh my God. One of my favorites, and I actually got a chance to work with him, was Daryl Dragon of Captain and Tennille.
Oh, wow.
And
Yeah.
a lot of people don't know what an amazing, beyond the fact that this was just a beautiful man. This guy was just a beautiful person. He was a very, very giving musician, but he was a phenomenal musician. And he played on Survivor records.
Wow.
And he played on quite a few records, actually. And he was an enormously talented keyboard player. So he's one that I always tend to think about. But you know, Giorgio Moroder was a producer. One of my favorite of that era was Trevor Horn. And I'm sure you're not shaking your head like you know who he is.
No, I think I've heard the name.
Well, his original first band I think was the Buggles with Video.
Oh, I love the
Radio
Buggles.
Star.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he went on to produce everybody in England. I mean, he's like he's the biggest producer probably, you know, the world is known on that side of the ocean. Trevor Horn is just amazing. He's won every award possible. And, you know, he's worked with every band you can think of, everyone from Annie Lennox to Sting to Thompson Twins to, you know, all these guys. And his other band was Art of Noise. And,
yeah, I remember them.
They're another just outrageously creative group of people. I don't know if he's actually a keyboard player or not, but he's another guy that's kind of in that Giorgio Moroder kind of vibe.
I didn't realize that he wasn't the keyboard player. I thought he was. I didn't realize he was more of a producer. You know, I love
Vangelis. He's another guy.
Yeah. That's another name, an old name. I love on this song. It's one of the Donna Summers where, you know, you have the keyboard bass line. That's a great, and then the string.
Want your love, want your love, want your love.
Yeah. And I love the strings. I love all that phaser stuff. That
remember Laura Branigan?
Yeah.
Gloria.
Yeah.
That was George Moroder.
Yeah. All right. So let's switch gears here. What are you involved in right now? What new projects are you involved in, or what services are you offering to the public?
Well, right now I'm babysitting couches.
All right.
I'm just kidding. Hold on a second.
How can I help you? How can I get you out there?
I think that was a stupid thing to say. I just unplugged my headset.
Oh, you're right.
What I mean, I'm just kidding. No, I have a couple pet projects that I'm working on right now. One you mentioned earlier was the Keitel All-Stars, which is sort of a labor of love for me, but it's really a fantastic group of players. It's a band that is recreating songs from 1970 to 1979 that are the AM hits of that era. You know, the stuff by Andrew Gold and Argent and you know, you can just, I mean, everybody, you know, Three Dog Night, Partridge Family. I mean, all kinds of, anything that was really iconic, but not the heavy stuff from the, not disco and not the heavy stuff. So it's just the real AM hits. And they do it in a style that they do it in an extremely detailed way. So these songs sound, what we're trying to do is we want it to feel like we're the band that actually is perform, you know, that actually wrote these songs.
Cool.
So no tracks, no trickery, no electronic stuff. I bring my real instruments and we have a really good time. Everybody sings. I get to sing. And so that band, unfortunately, these last few years, I've spent an enormous amount of time on the road between Survivor and Keitel. My year was, most of the weekends were certainly most of the weeks were taken up by traveling. So I haven't been doing a whole lot of home projects like I was earlier, you know, a few years back. So a lot of those projects, I mean, those two projects, certainly Survivor, they're now, you know, on hold. So lately I've been sort of revisiting my old catalog, looking at songs that I had released and put out and on my own records and old songs that I wanted to go back and re-sing and re-look at and writing some more. And I'm putting them online and I'm kind of reconnecting with me, so to speak.
Yeah, that's cool. What services are you offering to the public? Is there are you for hire for music projects?
Absolutely.
Or,
I do session work. I have, I've got, like I said earlier, I've got my Rhodes, which some people want real Rhodes. I've got that. I've got my Wurlitzer, obviously my keyboard skills and singing. And plus, I can record tracks in my studio here and send them via digitally, which I do a lot with people. And so I work with different recording studios. Certain clients want some things and they call me. So I'm trying to do more of that now. Plus, I also offer songwriting with people if people want to collaborate and they've got something they need to work on, usually for hire. It depends on the situation, if there's a publishing thing involved or something,
I mean, what if some dude just hears this podcast on YouTube and says, man, I need someone to help me, just some general public guy. I need someone to help me write the song. I mean, and I'm willing to pay you. Would you take a job like that?
Oh, yeah. I do that now. I do that a lot.
Oh, okay, great.
That's what I meant by producing. I mean, it just, if someone said, I got a small budget and I want to finish these songs, I need piano. I need someone to help me arrange it and record it. I can offer all those things. I do that now.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, that's awesome. Here's the question I got here. So a question is, where do you think the future of music is going in the next decade?
Well, it's kind of a vague question. I mean, going in terms of sales or in terms of musicality?
Yeah. I don't have that. The question's not that detailed, but I thought you were very insightful when you said that how music is today, that it's kind of background to the internet and gamings and while you're online or whatever. Do you feel that music's going to just keep going in that direction, or will it ever be something that people really love and get excited about?
I can answer that question, but I'm not sure that I'm answering it in a more wishful sense.
Okay.
So keep that in mind. But I think things are like pendulums, styles and trends. And I think that people are going to want to play an instrument. And, you may have, AI that can figure out chord changes for you. And you might have some type of, vocal corrector, or whatever. But at the end of the day, there's nothing like sitting down at an instrument and just being one with that, or your voice. And I think people will rediscover that. I don't think that's just human nature. We're always going to be doing something with our hands and our bodies to create. And I don't think that's going to stop. But I do think that it's going to be enhanced greatly by, you may not see as many bands. You might see a lot of solo artists that are doing it all. You see these looper guys, which is amazing. They sit down, they'll come up with what's his name? He's made that really popular. I can't think of his name right now. They have a looping device that'll just loop about 4 measures or a measure, and then they'll go to another instrument and go to another. And that's kind of, that's really creative, and it's really cool what you can do with that. And there are cats that are doing like whole bands without the whole band.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's kind of popular now on Twitch.
Yeah. If I could just remember his name, he's the biggest artist right now, and for some reason it escaped me. But he made that hugely popular. He would sell out 10,000 people, and just to see one guy.
Are you not talking about the guy from the 80s, like Bobby McFerrin?
No, he's a young guy. He's like 25. What's his name? Anyway.
And I don't know the guy. My friend, I don't know.
Yeah, he's from England. He's redhead. I look like an idiot. He's so famous, and I can't remember his name.
It's okay. I don't know.
Somebody will tell me.
I don't know either.
You would if I said his name. For some reason, I can only think of me right now.
Oh, that's okay.
Who sing in opera?
Did he sing on Oprah? My wife is saying, did he sing on Oprah? What I found is interesting is, there's that Geico commercial that came out with, have you seen the one with Rat in it?
Yeah.
And that has kind of put rap back on the Billboard charts again, that song.
Isn't that something?
And I was just thinking about the other day, is like the kids of today haven't seen an 80s hair metal band. And maybe they're seeing that and kind of going, wow, that's pretty cool.
Well, about 10 years ago, Survivor did a Starbucks commercial.
I think I kind of remember that. Yeah. What song was that with?
It was with Eye of the Tiger.
Oh, okay.
And it was an enormous resurgence for them. That's what got them back out on the road, and they started selling, started publishing again that song. Not that it was ever out of style, but so it's not surprising. But what that does tell you is that I think people just generally, as a human being, I think that you can sense realism. You can sense what's your bullshit meter. You can kind of feel when you're being pandered to, or when you're actually feeling something that somebody is expressing. You may not always recognize it, but you somewhere deep down, you know what's real. And I think people will get a little tired of, the plasticity, of what they're seeing on, because the thing about the internet is that it's not so much that there aren't talented people. Everybody's has a potential to be extremely talented, and there are a lot of really good musicians out there. But what the problem is that the internet and YouTube and places like that have allowed a lot of art to be made, like more art than we've ever seen in the human history of creating art. I mean, it doesn't take a lot. Machines have helped us in many ways. That doesn't mean it's good. That doesn't mean it's lasting. It doesn't mean it's gonna touch your soul. And I think people will gravitate unknowingly to the ones that do move them. And unfortunately, some of those hair bands aren't necessarily the best of what we have, but they still came up in an era where you still played an instrument. You didn't make it on a computer. And so there's some realism there that I think people miss. Yeah. I don't know. I could be going out on a limb on that. I know I miss it. So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even the hair bands, I mean, I would say that most of the guitar players are amazing guitar players. They're not.
Oh yeah.
I mean, those guys are shredders, they're amazing guys.
Yeah. You had to have skills. You just had to, you know. You couldn't fix it later. You had to do it.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Can't fix it later. I noticed that one thing is that you got to open up for E.L.O. What was that like? I'm a big fan of E.L.O.
Oh, my God. Yeah, that was cool. That was at a place called The Strand. No longer there anymore. It's in Redondo Beach, California.
Okay.
And it was sort of I had my original band, and we got chummy with the management of the Strand, and they liked us, and so they allowed us to. It's up to the venue. Sometimes it can be up to the venue who gets to be opening act. And sometimes the national artist will bring an opening act or request somebody, but not always. And in that case, they let us open for them, and. Yeah, that was a big thrill. I mean, we opened up for a bunch of people. It was Molly Hatchet. We opened up for Iron Butterfly and Great White and E.L.O. And that was all from that year of just, hey, you guys want to play? We're open. Sell, here's some tickets. It's E.L.O. Oh, awesome! And we were just like, yeah. And it got us. It was, what can I say? I mean. E.L.O. man.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I would still get nervous around Jeff Lynne if I saw him today.
Yeah,
he's a hero of mine.
Yeah,
Jeff Lynne.
I agree.
Guy's a genius.
Yeah, I think he's a great songwriter. I even love the Xanadu soundtrack. I think there's some great songs there.
It's better than how the critics panned it, but it's certainly got some musical competence to it. I think it's great too.
Yeah. So since you're there in LA, it's funny, my wife is from Glendale. She's Armenian from Glendale, and I dragged her out here to Texas. And we go there every couple of years. We'll go out and visit family and stuff. What is the live music scene out there like now? I mean, pre-COVID, obviously, but I mean,
yeah, I know.
What is the scene out there like?
It's not good. Yeah. I to be honest, it's sad. It's there are a few clubs,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I mean, we still have the Viper Room, and there's still the Whiskey, and there's still
Mm-hmm.
the Roxy.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few little other places, but it's for an up and coming band. There's not a lot of, you know, it's easier to book a festival, you know, or get on, you know, a party or something. There really isn't that kind of a scene anymore. It's different now. It's a big tribute scene here.
I used to play quite a bit in Austin. They always market themselves as the live music capital of the world. And there is a main street, 6th Street, and half of downtown Austin is the University of Texas, and the other half is, you know, business.
Right.
But the middle, 6th Street is right there, and there are a ton of bars up and down the street.
Yeah.
But a lot of it, you know, is cover music, cover bands.
Right,
It's not like, you know, I mean, sure, there's quite a bit of original music, but then, you know, probably the majority of it was cover, whether it was rock or country or kind of, I don't know what they call it,
It's not much different
Americana.
here.
It's not much. So is it mostly cover music there? Cover bands?
There's a huge tribute
But
scene.
not tribute bands. I mean, just, you know, 3 or 4 dudes just, you know, playing it. You know, like we were at one place in Glendale called
There's
Jack's
tons
Bar.
of work.
So there's
there's tons of work for a cover band. Tons.
Right. Not like an official tribute, like we're the Led Zeppelin cover band or the whatever, but just like regular cover bands.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I still work with a few of them too. I mean, you know, if I'm home on, before all this, if I'm home on a weekend and someone needs me, I'll go down and play. But, it's more of a working class kind of thing now, where it's not, if you have a cover band, it's not hard to find work.
Oh, okay.
Or, you know, prior to this, of course, I don't know what this is going to do to that scene. It's not going to be good, but yeah, man, I spent many years in cover bands. You know, all through the last couple decades. I'm happy to do it more. You know, but anyway, to get back to what your point was, the original scene isn't the same as it was in the earlier days. There really is no original scene. There's a few.
It was I'm sorry, go ahead.
There's a few cities that are a little bit more, you know, a little more musical friendly. Ventura. I don't know if you've been to Ventura County.
I don't think so.
By the beach, up north. It has a little bit more of a music vibe to it than you could on a given night. You could go see an original band or a cover band, and you know. But LA itself is really not. I would not call LA the capital of music anymore. Not in the way that I knew it.
Did you? So back when it was, you know, I guess it's heyday, you could say, was it mostly original music at that point? All those bands, you know, like Motley Crue and all these guys are playing down on the Strip or whatever before they were super huge. Was it all about original music, or was it still a lot of cover bands too?
There were cover bands, but not like the proliferation that there is. Like now, every restaurant has a duo or a band, and every place that has a stage has a band, and they're playing covers.
Right.
Because it's a little more value than a jukebox.
Right.
For their patrons.
Right.
But in those days, depending on who you dealt with, you were kind of frowned upon. You know, it's like, oh, well, you know, you're not serious about your music. You're doing a cover band thing. Nowadays, you're like not serious about your music if you're not playing every night.
Right.
And of course, the only way you can do that is to be in a cover band.
Right.
So attitudes have changed. But the reason that attitude was different was because you had places like Gazzari's and FM Station and the Roxy and the Whiskey, and these places thrived on original music because people thrived on original music. So there was a reason. If you had a band, the last thing you want to do is play someone else's songs, you know, and because there were venues that were designed for people that were interested in what you had to offer, even if they didn't know who you were. Coconut Teaser is another place that I used to play it. It was on Sunset. It's another place that was, I was booked there every week, you know, with my bands.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, it's too bad that that's not where it is. I had read this one time. The statement was something along the line of that if someone in a bar would rather hear the shittiest version of some cover song than some song that they'd never heard before.
That's sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends, though. I think that comes down to this one thing. It's attention spans.
Yeah.
And people's attention spans have been trained to accept less. You know, I mean, I've got you and we've got a million different potential stations we could click on at a moment's notice. You know, you don't like this YouTube channel, go to another one. You don't like YouTube, go to TikTok, go to Twitch, go Instagram. I mean, there are so many avenues to find something of interest that what happens, I think, is that your brain really can't process it all.
Right.
So we just kind of flick through it, you know, and that's the mentality. And, you know, I'm not making a judgment. I'm not saying that people are stupid or not into it. I'm just saying that's who we are now.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't make sense for someone to be interested in sitting and listening to a song they never heard before for 5 minutes.
Right. Yeah.
It sounds laughable now.
You know, I did a podcast a while back with a guy and a friend that's a radio DJ, but he's also the program director. And I just asked him, you know, especially on pop music, why is it the same 15 songs over and over and over and over again?
Ad nauseum.
At a loop. From what I gather is that, you know, obviously radio is a business. They've got to get advertisers because, you know, that's what pays everybody's salaries. And kind of the way he put it is that on pop, especially pop radio, they're only catching people to and from the grocery store.
That's it. I was just going to say, the only people listening to terrestrial radio stations are in a car.
Yeah, and to and
nowhere
from
else.
Yeah, so they're just going to play the minimum amount of songs that's going to attract the masses of people, and try to catch those people. And that's what you hear now. It's just those, 15 songs. And if you're really into music, you're going to go listen to Pandora or something else,
Most people are just going to plug their phone, Bluetooth, and listen to their catalog or stream it on the internet. The ones that are listening to terrestrial radios are probably listening it to for other reasons. They're probably like the DJ, or they have a show they're waiting to come on, and it fits within their window between home and work.
Right.
True music lovers are probably not listening to terrestrial radio anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly at some point cycled out and got into talk radio.
Yeah.
I had mentioned before, when I only made it as far as a bar cover band, but especially when I get off, at 2:00 and driving home, I used to listen. Do you ever heard he's dead now, unfortunately, but this guy, Art Bell, and his,
oh my God.
I used to love listening to Art on the way home.
Chuck Norrie took over for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love listening to Coast on the way home. And,
I remember that.
Yeah, I used to just love listening to that.
I used to say I'm a very science-minded person, and I used to get very frustrated with that show because I'd be like, no, you got to ask the right questions, because it just sounds like these guys are trying to push a book or something. I mean, come on, if you're gonna have these amazing, these incredible ideas, and you got to have something to back it up, and they never would do that. They would just go, oh wow, that's really cool.
That's interesting. I love it. I felt like Art was a master, because he'd be like, okay, ladies and gentlemen, put the kids to bed, because tonight's going to be one hell of a ride. He could really build that show up.
He was truly an entertainer in that sense. He understood his audience. But what's interesting is I think he was true. He truly wanted to believe in some of the more paranormal stuff that they talked about. Unfortunately, it was entertainment after a while. I mean, I think it started off from a good point, but later on, especially with George Norrie, I tuned out years ago, because it was like, this is just voodoo science. I want to hear some real stuff.
Yeah.
But it was very entertaining. No doubt about that.
Yeah. So it was him, and I love this dude, and he's off the air too now. I mean, you might know him. He's based out of LA. Phil Henry.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He's another
That guy's amazing.
He did all the voices.
Yeah.
He'd get these people call in all pissed that he was saying, and pretend it was, it was crazy.
Yeah. The very first time I heard him, one of his characters that he does over and over was a drummer. And, he always, as you know, he would always create some scenario to piss people off. And the thing was, the drummer said, every girl I date has to help me at my gig, sell merch. And she's got to help me pack up my drums at the end of the night. Something like that, and it would get people all upset.
Just to get the ire up of people so they'd call in and
wind him
play
up.
with them. Yeah.
And then I guess he had like a pair of drumsticks. He'd be like, yeah, listen to this. And he just kind of, like, did you hear that? That was awesome.
That was the era of the Howard Stern show, when he was, competing with those guys. I mean, they were competing with him,
Yeah, and sadly, where I'm in Texas, all of that is gone. I mean,
Art Bell podcasts.
Well, no, I mean ours. We have like a one major AM station that can blast everywhere, and coast to coast is still there because what else is on from midnight to 4?
Right.
But and Phil went up, and there was another guy I used to listen to, this kind of like out there psychologist named what was his name? Roy Masters. But all those shows are gone. It's just all one Republican radio, one guy after another guy after another guy after another. It's like they all got
Rush Limbaugh or something.
Yeah, it's like him, then Hannity, then some other dude at night, and then some other dude or whatever. It's never ending. It's like it got somebody with some agenda bought a whole ton of radio stations, and that's just what you get now. But it's all gone.
Clear Channel probably owns
it. I think so.
But something, I don't listen to radio. I haven't listened to a radio station in probably 15 years. Yeah, I just don't need it.
Yeah. Well,
it's another example of how things have changed,
Yeah. All right, man. Well, how else can I help you out? Before I got to wrap it up here, what else can I do to help you?
Oh, I don't know how to answer that.
How can I promote you? What do you got going on? Well, let me put it this way. How can people find out more about you? Where do they go to find you?
Well, obviously my website is a great place because it's got all my Facebook connected to it and YouTube. And that is JeffreyBryanMusic.com. It's spelled JeffreyBryan music.com. Okay. And that is a great place because I put everything in one place and then it goes out from there. So that's one thing. The KeitelAllstars.com.
Okay.
The Keitel All Stars with 2 L's s.com. And that band is if you like the 70s, you're going to want to check that out. Cool band. And then you've got my Facebook page, which you can find on my website and stuff. Right now, I'm not, like I said, I'm not able to post anything from the road because I'm not on the road. So I'm just doing stuff in my studio and putting it up. But if you're a songwriter or if you're a musician that's in need of some production or anything else, feel free to get a hold of me. There's plenty. I do a lot of TV stuff still, and some film stuff, and then I've got I do some writing projects with different people for publishing purposes. So, I'm pretty well-rounded musician-wise. There's not too many projects that I would be lost on. If you have a need for a keyboard player, I can do that. Singer, arranger, producer, recording, I can do all that and do.
Once you get back on the road again, because this stuff's eventually got to blow over, you have a YouTube channel, and that's called Jeffrey Bryan Music as well on YouTube, Jeffrey Bryan Music. And you should make little videos while you're on the road of backstage, on tour with Survivor, and hey, we're in Phoenix today. We're backstage. You could the cameras are so amazing now. You got to I shoot a lot of my
notes. I never thought of it until this COVID situation where I started. It was my wife who said, well, why don't you start putting up videos of what you do?
Exactly.
People need to see this,
Yeah.
And so I don't think I'm going to stop when this stops. But absolutely, I just didn't think of it. I mean, my head was in a different place.
Yeah.
You have to understand when you're on the road with a band, like, for example, Survivor, I kind of see myself as a steward of history. You know, I mean, people know these songs. They're not there to see me.
Yeah.
And I take it very seriously. I mean, I want to make sure that, I'm representing their memories as best as possible. So my mind is in a different place,
right?
But it will be different going forward because I've had this experience of being home and recording stuff, which I wasn't doing before.
Right. I don't know how the guys of Survivor are. I don't want to, get into the business. I don't know if they'd be cool with it, but that'd be really cool. It's like, you could always be documenting, hey, this is what we're up to today, or, always showing sound checks. You could just kind of pop a little video of a sound check, or, hey, I'm loading up my boards. This is my rig on stage, guys.
Yeah.
This is what I'm doing. It's like your own little vlog of being a touring musician with Survivor.
Yeah, I agree. I used to post pictures from the road, not video though.
Yeah.
And video just was too much work at the time. My mind was on what I had to do that night and stuff. But like I said a minute ago, my world has changed now and my thinking's starting to change a little bit. So it's probably more in the forethought, of my thinking now going forward than it was then. But that's a great idea.
Yeah.
And something I should definitely be doing more of.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of avenues. TikTok is the newest thing now.
Yeah.
I mean, those are like 15-second deals. You can make little things for TikTok. You can make little videos for Instagram as well. Those are like a minute or less. I think your maximum is 60 seconds on Instagram. Hey, guy,
right.
you
I'm
could build
on
up
Instagram TV, which IGTV, which gives me as long as you want. I put whole songs up there.
Okay, so then you're on your Instagram, and that's also
yeah. And I forgot about that.
That's also Jeffrey Bryan Music?
Yeah. I have an IGTV station.
Okay, cool.
Where I, from my Instagram account, where I have all my videos up there, and they're full length.
I think it can be all in one now, IGTV and IG.
Yeah. What they do is they give you a preview in Instagram for 30 seconds. And if you want to see the whole video, you click the IGTV button.
Right.
And then it takes you to the IGTV platform, which allows you to watch a movie of any length.
Okay.
I shouldn't say any length, but a much longer length. I think 20 minutes. It might be more than that.
Yeah, and I don't know. And a good point that you made earlier is I don't think people's attention spans are going to go down with that. You know what I mean? Like TikTok is huge and it's only 15 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah, but most of what I found on TikTok is just
people dancing to songs,
people being stupid, just have like stupid human videos,
right?
Yeah. Wait, I haven't found any music on there, and I don't know why. There's a few things, but it's mostly people just doing, kind of like whatever the popular song is, and everyone's got to sing that song, or whatever,
right, yeah. So I don't know, just kind of throwing those
Twitch,
out there
now,
for you.
Twitch is something that I did look at and thought there was something there, and I got distracted, and you just reminded me to go back to it. So I'm going to take another look at that.
Right. And
some great ideas, though.
Are you also Jeffrey Bryan Music on Twitch?
Probably. I don't remember. I just set it up and then I kind of looked around and I walked away. I have to log into it. It's a good question. Yeah. I have nothing on Twitch. I haven't done anything yet.
All right. I'll just kind of let you know that and what I'm using right now, it's a free program, which pretty much is the industry standard of video, is this thing called Streamlabs. And they use that you can go download that for free. It works better on PC than Mac. And I'm a hardcore Mac guy for all the video work.
Is that similar to OLB or
OBS?
OBS, I mean.
OBS is the original, and then
open source,
open broadcast source or something like that. Yeah. And Streamlabs just took that and built on top of this and made it even better and more user friendly. And it's a hell of a lot of stuff. I mean, I just know enough to get by for myself, but I mean, there's a lot of people that can make your.
But it interfaces with your computer pretty well.
Yeah.
I mean, because I'm right now, I'm using this crummy webcam, and I have GoPros and I have high-end DSLRs, and without a capture card, I can't use them. So that's what's been kind of blocking me. I have decided where I wanted to spend money on it or not.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, you can get a PC, and like I said, I'm like, a webcam. I don't know, 80 to $100. Like those. I have like a Logitech Pro, whatever, see
Yeah.
something, but there's like
See
80 to 80,
a 920 or something like
920,
that.
960, something like that. That's
Yeah.
about 80
Yeah.
to $100. You
Yeah.
get that, and my. If you look at my setup here, I'm in a temporary place right now. My lighting's terrible. I look all red, but I mean, you can set it up and look really nice, and just take a look at a few of the dudes out there, man, just playing piano and singing songs.
Yeah.
There's so many people.
Yeah, because I got the audio quality down. I'm not worried about that.
And
the video live stream has always been a little, from when I say always, I just mean the last few months of me starting to do this has been a little bit of a challenge, considering that I have so much gear. You have no idea.
I'm sure.
And yet none of it will work for streaming except the audio portions of it. I have, great audio interfaces and plenty of outboard gear and whatever, but the camera portion of it is something I'm not really a camera guy.
Well, you could probably get it set up with a webcam, and then on your input with Streamlabs, you could probably get like these USB what do they call it? USB mixers.
Yeah. Yeah,
and then
I've seen those.
You're usually
Behringer makes them. And
and then you could probably either do some. I don't know, because I don't really stream that. I don't know how much are guys just doing soft synths and just using Reason or whatever, Ableton or whatever, just going straight into the mix.
Yeah.
But with your even if you want to, you could get out like one of your organs or your hard your old schools. And with the mixer, just run a mic to the speaker and just mic it like miking up an amp, old school, and then one mic for you.
No.
No?
No. I'd rather it sound a little slicker than that.
But what I mean? I'm sure, but I'm just simplifying everything.
Yeah. Oh, no. I mean, I can get all the audio into the computer. That's no problem. I mean, I've got an SM58 sitting here, and I've got a bunch of condenser mics because I have a 16 input audio interface. I could record a whole drum set. Getting it into the computer is not a problem. And so soft synths doesn't really come into play because it doesn't matter what it is. It gets digitized no matter what comes through it. Right. Because it's a digital mixer. It's just been marrying the video with the bandwidth of the audio. I haven't, the missing piece of gear is the video capture, unless I use, like you said, like a USB webcam that's better quality than this junky one I have.
Right. And I think that what you need to get the Streamlabs, because that way
I'm going to look into that.
Streamlabs, you grab, it asks you, what audio are you grabbing? Okay, I'm grabbing it from here, here, and here. And then what video do you want to grab? Okay, use this webcam. Boom. And then you have your audio and your video inputs, and then send it out to.
I messed around with OBS for a little while, and I liked how that allowed me to choose my different sources. So yeah, I'm gonna take a look. Streamlabs.
Yeah, Streamlabs. You'll see it out there. Just Google.
Yeah, I think I've heard of it actually. I'll check it out.
All right, man. Before I wrap it up, do you have one message that you would like to leave the audience with?
Yeah, I guess with respect to music, really with respect to anything you do, I don't think there's I don't think that there is a substitute for authenticity. And it's easy to hide behind a camera and a computer and be miles away from your audience. It's another thing to be able to express something from the heart that's real. And don't be afraid to do that. Don't allow all the electronics to get in the way of the human touch, because that's all we're doing is communicating. Whether I'm singing it or acting it or having a podcast with it, it's a communication. It's just a transfer of ideas from me to you to me. And so if we can get back to that, or just remember that as we do these, I think we'll be creating better stuff. That's my word of my little 2 cents.
No, I agree with that. And just to add to that again, I'm just going to keep pounding you with this. I think that you would be great for Twitch, because they would see authenticity of, someone with skills right there live.
Yeah. Well, you got me thinking about it again. So I'm, like I said, I'm glad that you brought it up.
Yeah.
Because it's now I'm going to go back to that.
Cool, man. Cool, man. All right, Jeff, thank you so much, dude, for hanging out with me. I
my
really,
pleasure.
really appreciate it. I wish you massive success of whatever you do. If you ever need any help with YouTube or Twitch or whatever, feel free to
thank you.
Feel free to, send me an email or find me on Facebook. If I can't help you, I'll do the best I can, or maybe I can find someone else who can help you. But,
Thank you. And likewise, I don't know if you needed anything from me, but doors always open.
Cool, man.
Feel free to hit me up. And also, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I don't know how long we've talked, about an hour or so, but I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I really enjoy this. As I was a chiropractor, I did it for 20 years. What I enjoyed most about the business was just chatting with the patients. I just enjoy people. I just enjoy chit and chatting with people. And I feel like every time I do a podcast, I kind of like make a new friend.
You seem pretty comfortable with that. So
yeah.
It's cool.
All right. So thank you everybody for watching the podcast and listening. If you haven't, please subscribe and have a good evening.